There are two sides to every story. The National Broadcasting Company presents the vivid drama of life itself. Broadcasting's original program of mediation, The Court of Human Relations. And now the man who has familiarized millions of people with the idea of mediation, helped to make it a creative force in American life. A.L. Alexander.
Conceivably, there are some aspects of life which are censorable. However, it is established that any aspect of life which is real and at the same time can be handled with good taste and dignity is valid material for these proceedings. Now, to show you how times have changed, here is a case which years ago would have been something of a phenomenon, curiosity. But when you look at your pin-up calendars and your newsstands today, well, there just aren't many secrets anymore. Now, as we turn to our mediators, Miss Virginia Peterson, Dr. L. Wendell Fifield, and Judge William A. Wachenfeld, the purpose of this proceeding is to take a situation which has created dissension and conflict, cut through all other considerations to the basic issue, and determine what is just and reasonable and fair. Now, you may not have this issue in your own home, but this just goes to show you some of the things that go on. This is case 5898, and let's see if we can't manage to get this settled.
Mr. Alexander and members of the board, my daughter is 20 years of age. I have tried to bring her up to believe in the better things of life. As a little girl, I sent her to Sunday school, and she led a normal childhood.
What did you want her to do, really, with her life?
I wanted her to just lead a normal life, to get married and raise a family.
Just a nice, average family in a small community.
Yes.
But what happened?
When she got older, I noticed that her only interest was the theater, modeling, and things that concern
Yes.
the theatrical world.
What about her school background?
She went to school. She had a high IQ, and when she went to school, she was told that she was not doing well in her schoolwork. Her principal and teacher spoke to her of this and told her how important it was to have an education. She told them she was not interested in an education, that she was interested in modeling.
And what did she do as a result of that?
She had 6 months to go before she would receive her diploma, and she left.
And did she come to New York and look for jobs in modeling? Did you have any objection to that?
She applied to these photographers and studios, and to my astonishment, I was so shocked to learn of this. I found out that she was posing in the nude. I don't know where she gets these ideas from. I just don't understand it.
And what did you tell her?
I told her that these things were just not right, and she said that I was old-fashioned.
Well, now, suppose we get the point of view of your daughter.
Well, I feel that a woman's body is supposed to be the holiest thing in life. And if an artist or photographer has the ability to be able to capture the lines and the shadows, I feel it is very uplifting. When I pose, I feel very natural. I feel that it is spiritual as well as emotionally lovely, such as when you're touched by any lovely thing in life. I like the environment, the people I meet, the whole atmosphere it represents. And I'm proud to be a model. I'm not ashamed of it.
Well, now, how do you feel about that?
Well, Mr. Alexander, I feel that she's taking an awful chance, and whenever she leaves the house, I am very worried. I remember that she answered an ad in the paper, and upon applying was told the position was taken. She then was told to leave her phone number. 2 weeks later, she received a call from this man where she had applied for this position. He told her that he would like to take 3 films of pictures of her and that he would give her $500. She asked what kind of pictures and was told pornographic. Upon that, she refused. These are the things that keep me worried.
Well, how do you feel about these dangers?
Well, you could be a secretary and get into trouble. There are dangers in all walks of life. And on the whole, I believe that people want to do what is right. If you trust in them, they'll prove to be trustworthy. I don't know.
Do you think that posing under these circumstances is a legitimate profession? Do we understand that you pose in art schools?
Yes, I do. And there are a wide variety of vocations, and modeling happens to be a legitimate vocation. I see nothing sinful in the human body, and I don't believe that people should be self-conscious about things that are natural.
Well, do you feel that it's one thing to be exposed to danger on the street and another thing to be in this particular position?
Well, it is one thing to be exposed. You can be attacked in the street. But to deliberately leave yourself into a position like my daughter does is another thing.
What about the negatives?
Now, if these negatives of the pictures that she has posed for were to get into the wrong hands and were sold on the newsstands for every Tom, Dick, and Harry to see in these nude magazines, what chance would my daughter have of any nice man being able to understand these things and lead a normal life?
Well, what about these magazines on the newsstands? Your mother feels that this constitutes a very substantial danger.
Well, if the magazine is cheap, I wouldn't pose for it. But the whole attitude of these things have been changed. What might have been considered shocking isn't thought of that as any longer, really. I don't know. I'm just not embarrassed of the whole thing, and I'm not ashamed of it. Really.
You're pretty proud about...
Yes, that's right. I'm not ashamed of my body at all. I'm very proud of it. And if an artist or a photographer or a sculptor wants to employ me because of my figure, I don't see why I shouldn't do it.
And you feel that this, as you've described it, is sacred?
Oh, yes. I feel that the human body is extremely sacred.
Dr. Fifield?
I'm afraid that this young lady has a little different concept of the word sacred than I have. We're told that our body is the temple of the Spirit, and that it therefore must be used only in connection with those things that are right and good and true. Now, reference has been made to the fact that there's commercial photography involved in this. I happen to know that parents throughout the country are tremendously concerned about the effect of these pictures upon their children. There has been a mention made about the dangers that are involved here. We had a horrible case out on the West Coast just a little while ago about people who responded to ads for modeling, and 4 were murdered by the person who put the ads in the paper. It was a terribly tragic thing. The point is not alone what you think about it, but what your modeling that way leads other people to think about you and about your attitudes and your availability and all of those other things. You may, through the process of wish thinking, because you want to do it, reason it out for yourself. But you lay yourself open, in this form of modeling certainly, to all sorts of attitudes and opinions, which I would think for a girl of your intelligence and parent desire to do the right thing would simply in the long run terrify you.
Ms. Peterson?
I understand that one can have a romantic concept of it. Simonetta was a wonderful model for Botticelli, and there have been well-known models in the history of art, but I can't help feeling with the mother. I'm a mother myself. I don't know how I could stand the idea of my daughter doing it, because I know what other people think. I know what they think when they look at those magazines. I know why they look at those magazines, and they don't know how you felt about it. I'm afraid I must agree with Dr. Fifield. I also don't see it as a career, really. It can't go on. You won't always look so well. There's a blind alley there. And I don't know whether you aren't throwing away without perhaps being quite aware of it the kind of security, the kind of position you'd like to find yourself in, say, when you're my age. Because now it looks as if you'd never get to be there, but you will.
Judge Walkenfeld?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about the fact that the occupation that the lady follows has extra hazards to it, particularly in the manner in which she employs her time. And yet those hazards are true in all walks of life. She impresses me as being quite sound. I think it's evidenced by the story that her mother told, where she was offered a considerable sum of money for what might be called an improper performance, and she immediately rejects it. That shows solidity. That shows a moral approach. She's emancipated. She has a right to choose the occupation that she wants, and if this is of interest to her and its emoluments are sufficient to attract her, I think she has the right to follow it. But she shouldn't ignore the warning that her mother gives her because it's not her imagination. She's giving you sound advice. And as Miss Peterson says, you're choosing a career that has a short life, shorter than an athlete's.
Well,
And perhaps you should take that into consideration. And I would suggest that although you have the right to do what you are doing, morally I see nothing wrong with it. Nevertheless, listen to your mother. Talk it over with her. See if it isn't worthwhile making a change.
It's so hard to listen to one's mother. I've also been a daughter, and I know perfectly well how difficult it is, but it's inescapable that if one has lived 20 years longer or 30 years longer than somebody, one has seen enough to be able to figure the chances of the future in a way that it's impossible to do at 20. It really isn't because mothers are stuffy. It's because they can't help knowing more than you can know, no matter how much you read or hear, until you've lived through it. What a danger it is for your future, not the danger of something happening to you through someone else. You seem to have plenty of sense. But the position you suddenly find yourself in the day when you try to say what you've been doing to someone whom you care about who won't understand.
Well, I trust the board agrees, without questioning in any way the sincerity of this girl or her integrity, that this kind of posing on several counts is not the wisest thing for her to do professionally or on the basis of her personal life or future. It is the opinion of this board, unanimously, everything considered, that the fact that her intentions are good in no way warrants her continuance in this particular kind of modeling, and the board agrees with the mother in this case. Now, we have an issue here between two fine people that needs a little stripping away of the mask. And in order to do that, we're going to get a point of view that is completely detached and unprejudiced. Our board comprises the only American woman ever to be honored with the famed Nobel Prize for Literature, Miss Pearl Buck, Dr. Lloyd E. Foster, and Dr. Robert J. McCracken, two of our veteran mediators. Now, this is case number 4219, and here is the complainant husband.
Mr. Alexander and members of the board, I have a very nice wife, but at times I do not think she's very understanding.
In what connection?
I have a 19-year-old daughter. She's been keeping company with a young man now for quite some time, and they intend to get married. But at the present time, my wife has not consented to their marriage, and she refuses to go to the wedding. And that way created quite a fuss.
Yes, well, I think you're getting ahead of your story. Do you feel that your daughter ought to marry this man?
Yes, I do.
Well, why are you here?
Well, that isn't the point. The point is she wants to get married, and I think she should, and my wife not create such a fuss and consent to come to the wedding and also give her blessing.
And what is your wife doing at this time? I mean, in connection with your daughter.
Well,
what's she doing to your daughter?
She's keeping her from home. She doesn't come home to live anymore.
Well, now, let's get this straight. I want these mediators to understand what the background of the situation is, and we want the issue to be clear. How is your wife keeping your daughter away from the home?
Well, by not agreeing for them to get married.
Well, is she driving your daughter away from the house by her disapproval?
Yes, that's right.
And does your daughter come home to sleep?
Not very often. Once she might come home on a weekend to get clothing, and then she goes out again to her future mother-in-law's.
And do you want your daughter to have this man?
Well, under the circumstances, I do, because I think they love each other, even though my wife does object to them getting married.
You want to give them your blessing, and you want your wife to do that.
I want my wife to also.
And is that why you're here?
Yes, sir, that's why I'm here.
Well, suppose we hear from the wife.
Mr. Alexander and members of the board, I feel that my husband is being very unreasonable and not understanding. If my daughter marries this fella, it'll be the worst day of her life.
Well, how would you describe this young man?
He's lazy, he has no education, and he's just irresponsible in every which way.
What else is wrong with him?
He also has a very hot temper. He has struck my daughter several times, and we have had to intervene.
What about a job?
He has. This is the first job he's ever had, and he wouldn't have had this if my husband hadn't have gotten the job for him.
Now, what about his education?
He has next to no education at all.
Yes. Well, do you feel that your husband is responsible for the attitude of your daughter to a large extent because he doesn't want to put his foot down? In other words, you've had the burden of interfering with this marriage?
Well, my husband's a very easygoing man, and he's ready to give in, where I feel that it is wrong for me as a mother to consent to her marriage.
Well, suppose you tell us a little more so we can understand the situation a little better about what this young man does to your daughter and why you're so opposed to the marriage.
Well, not so long ago, my daughter bought a car, and while they were out, he got a flat. And because there was the chrome on the car got in the way of him fixing the flat, he ripped the chrome off the car in temper. Another time, they got another flat, and he put a hammer through the fender of the car.
Well, now, are his attacks only on the car?
Oh, no. If my daughter isn't wearing something that approves to him, he'll rip it right off her back.
Did he do that?
Yes, not so long ago, he ripped a dress right off her back.
And how about striking her?
He struck her several times, and we've had to intervene.
Now, how about the question of support?
Well, if he loses this job, I don't think he'll be able to get another job.
Well, has your daughter given him money?
Yes, my daughter has worked, and my daughter has practically supported him for most of the time that they've been going together.
Well, now, suppose we ask the husband and the father of this girl, 19-year-old girl.
That's right.
We understand she doesn't sleep at home now because she's angry at you for opposing her, is that right? We address the husband, father. Is it true that this young man, the future husband, apparently, of your daughter, has beaten her up on a number of occasions?
Yes, sir, that's right.
And is it true that he ripped a dress off her because he didn't like the dress?
That's right. Yes.
And did he hit the car with a hammer because he got a flat?
Yes, he did.
And whose car is it?
Well, it's my daughter's really, but they sort of worked it out together. See, but she
it out.
paid most of the money on it, and he worked a little bit, and he gave in a little money toward it. But I would say it was my daughter's really, because she put most in it.
Yes. And how about the support? Does she, when he doesn't work, virtually support him?
Yes, she pays his board and buys little things that he needs, sees that he has tobacco and cigarettes, things like that.
We understand they're not married yet.
No, not yet.
Now, despite all these things, and we assume there are many more that we can't go into, do you feel that this is a good prospect as a son-in-law?
Well, I don't, but she loves him, and I think that they should go ahead and get married. Because if we intervene too much, regardless of what we say, she's liable to go out and get married anyway.
So you feel that the best thing to do is go to the wedding, give him or her your blessing.
That's right.
And let them get along as well as they can.
Yes, sir, I believe that's right.
You don't agree with that at all?
No, Mr. Alexander and members of the board, I don't. I feel that if I give my consent to that marriage, I'm consenting not to a marriage, but to my daughter's funeral. For I feel that she's not going to have nothing but unhappiness, and I feel that if I show her that I don't approve of it, why, I think in time, when she's no longer blinded by love, that she will see that I'm right. And personally, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I feel that I'm standing strong in it, and I couldn't be a hypocrite and go to what I feel is my daughter's funeral.
Or give a blessing when you don't feel it?
Or give a blessing when I don't feel it.
Miss Buck?
Unfortunately, parents cannot make a grown child do what they wish. I agree that their stand should be absolutely firm. This is a bad marriage, will be a bad marriage. I think that ought to be made clear. And for that reason, there should not be any shilly-shallying about it one way or the other. The outlook is bad. I agree, and I feel very deeply, if I were a parent, I would not want to give my blessing. Nevertheless, I would make this all clear to this young woman. There is no approval. The outlook is very sad. Nevertheless, she remains the daughter, and having said their say, she has to learn the hard way. Some people cannot learn by precept. It takes a very intelligent, rational, thinking human creature to learn by precept and to learn from other generations. The sad thing is that the generations over and over again have to learn the same thing the hard way. And the love of the parents cannot fail for that reason. And I think that having made the stand clear, they can tell her they love her, they go to her wedding, not approving, but she is making up her mind, and the situation is perfectly clear between them.
Dr. McCracken?
That substantially is the situation as I see it too. I think that the mother is entitled and fully justified in saying as clearly and calmly as she can to her daughter that she, the daughter, is making a mistake that if she persists in the course that she's following, she will rue for many a day. But having done that, and the daughter still being determined to marry, I cannot see that the mother is justified in adopting an attitude that will mean that she's cutting her daughter off. Not only does she remain your daughter, but you remain her mother. I think I am bound to agree with you when you say that you cannot give your blessing to this marriage, but you surely will not withhold your affection, because then, don't you see, you'll be contributing directly to the situation that you're anticipating. You'll be part and parcel of it. More than ever, this girl is going to need you. So you can go to the wedding, surely, and continue, once the wedding is over, to give her all that she will require. What I marvel at is the tolerance and patience of the father. I would have anticipated that earlier he would have intervened, as fathers sometimes do, to ward off a man who would behave in this fashion towards a daughter.
Yes, have you made the point, and we speak now to the respondent wife, that your husband happens to be, and I'm sure he has many wonderful qualities, but he happens to be an extraordinarily easygoing man.
That's what he is.
Yes.
He's very easygoing.
And apparently this young woman, without a strong male parent, has taken advantage of the situation and has been very much indulged from that source. Dr. Foster?
We can very well understand why this mother has expressed her disapproval, because this young man has many negative qualities. His temper, his mistreatment of the daughter. And I think the mother has a perfect right to express her disapproval. She's concerned about her daughter. She wants her to be happily married and to get something out of the relationship. But having expressed her disapproval, I think she should express something else, and that's already been intimated. Namely, I think she should say to the daughter, I am your mother and you are my daughter. And that relationship can never be broken. I've loved you during the years, and I love you now, and my heart will always be open to you. I wish you would not enter this fateful marriage, but if you do, I still love you. And I believe that attitude will bring healing and help to a situation that is now torn by strife.
Well, the board does understand the sharp disappointment of this mother, as is clear from the eloquence and feeling of our mediators. It agrees that the disillusionment and the whole unhappy and disappointing situation is not consistent, however, with the sacredness of feeling that is usually conveyed by a blessing. I make this point now only because there's been considerable conflict between the husband and wife, the father and mother, as to whether there should be the bestowal of a blessing. In the opinion of this board, while the blessing should not be bestowed, there is absolutely nothing inconsistent with the mother's giving of affection. And come to think of it, if the only affection in the world were reserved for people who always deserved it, we haven't achieved paradise yet. Obviously, it is possible to have affection, to have tenderness for a person in their weakness, especially one's own child. Now, what the board does feel is that there is no point in harboring bitterness and resentment, that it would be much more fitting, once everything possible, as has been said, has been done to bring awareness to this girl, and after it has been tried, has failed, it would be entirely fitting for the mother to hold the door open. I believe that's the unanimous opinion of this board. You know, Miss Buck and Dr. Foster, Dr. McCracken, when the last angry word is spoken and the door is slammed, all contacts are cut off. When the door is left open, who knows? I think that's the unanimous opinion of this board. Leave the door open. We bring to a close another session of the Court of Human Relations and extend thanks to our distinguished mediators. You know, the word philosophy seems like a very formidable word, coming as it does from the Greek. But actually, its meaning is very simple. Literally translated, philosophy means the love of wisdom. Proverbs, of course, is full of philosophy. A tender word spoken in due season, how good is it? And we know that when the heart is won, the understanding follows.